The film begins in Broly village during a kite competition. At the same time, Sultan and his friend Govind are installing a satellite dish. We learn that they own a humble satellite channel installation company. At that moment, Tito and his companions arrive, and Tito says to Sultan, "Can you challenge me in the kite competition, or have you grown old and are no longer capable?" Govind tells him, "Man, get lost. Sultan has matured and is past such talk." But Sultan replies, "Agreed, but whoever loses will be shamed throughout the entire village." The competition begins. Tito runs, and Sultan throws the dish, jumps, and runs after it, with Govind running alongside him. Along the way, Tito's friends try to hinder him to make him lose, but Sultan escapes every time and continues to follow them. They enter between houses, climb on top of them, and jump from one house to another. This mischievous one tries to trip Sultan, but with one blow, Sultan makes him embrace the ground and continues after Tito. He descends, his eyes on the kite, and suddenly collides with this motorcyclist, and both fall. Sultan hits him for obstructing him, and with one blow, breaks his helmet, but he is surprised to find it's a girl. She tells him, "Fools like you are why girls don't leave their homes." But Sultan remains fixated, enchanted by her beauty. At the same time, Govind catches up and asks her what happened. She hits both of them, so Govind takes Sultan and they leave her and go. At that time, Tito had won, and Sultan was shamed throughout the village, remaining in his dazed state. At the same time, his father sees him and is annoyed. Sultan returns home and goes to sit with his grandmother. His father says to him, "You're 30 years old and still playing this nonsense. Isn't it enough that you've wasted my life savings on your failed business?" His grandmother tells him, "You're always so angry. Calm down and explain it to him gently." He replies, "I warn you, your way of dealing with him will make him destroy this entire house one day." He leaves them and goes. Sultan then tells his grandmother, "I finally found the girl I loved at first sight." She asks him, "Well, what are you waiting for? Go to her quickly and tell her, 'I love you and I want to marry you.'" He asks her, "Is it that simple?" She tells him, "Of course, but before that, go and pray at the shrine so that God may grant you what you wish for." Immediately, Sultan goes with Govind to the shrine and is surprised to find the girl there. Sultan realizes she is attending a wedding. At the same time, she drops some sweets, and Sultan seizes the opportunity and rushes to help her. She tells him, "You again? So you're stalking me." He introduces himself and tells her, "My name is Sultan Ali Khan, and I own a satellite channel installation company." He tries to speak to her in English to prove he is educated, but he stumbles and cannot articulate. She tells him, "Shut up, because you know nothing, and people like you are called shit jai, a worthless man, in English." She leaves him and goes. Govind asks him, "What did she tell you?" He replies, "She said I'm shit jai, meaning an attractive man." They leave the place to follow her. They enter the wedding behind her, and he sings to her in English, insulting her without understanding what he is saying. Everyone at the wedding watches her, and she gets annoyed and throws him out. At night, he sits thinking about the word shit jai, extremely delighted. Govind comes and tells him, "Listen, smarty, the Hindi translation of shit jai means rotten man." He stands up and tells him, "I've been called every insult in the world, but no one has ever told me I'm rotten before." Govind says to him, "You've been insulted, my friend." He replies, "I must take my revenge on this girl." The next day, Govind follows him to the fair and tells him, "I found out her name is Arfa, and she is the daughter of Barakat, the wrestling club owner, and she is here now." They go to the wrestling arena and watch her play against Baja, the state champion. Sultan is shocked by the sight. Arfa attacks Baja, following her father Barakat's instructions. At the same time, Govind comes and tells him, "I've found out something else. This girl is dangerous for you. She is fierce, and her father's dream is to win the gold medal for India in the World Championship." He told him, "But I have already fallen in love with her, and I can do anything because it's impossible for me to leave her." He says to him, "Okay, I'm with you, but how will you get close to her?" He replies, "Just as a doctor marries a doctor, a wrestler marries a wrestler." He tells him, "I still don't understand." He replies, "It means I will learn wrestling for her." At the same time, Arfa had crushed Baja and won the challenge, and she sees Sultan cheering her on. She leaves him and goes. Sultan follows her after she changes her clothes and tells her, "Congratulations, you crushed Baja." She tells him, "You too? I should have crushed you." He tells her, "Forgive me, I'm just speaking my mind. Honestly, I I loved you and wish to marry you. She tells him, Romeo, huh? No, spare yourself because I decided to marry a wrestler. He tells her, and 5 minutes ago, I decided to learn wrestling for you. He tells him, you are no match for wrestling. If you face wrestlers, you'll become kofta, minced meat. He tells her, if you're trying to scare me, I'm not afraid. Tomorrow morning, I'll be at your club and we'll see if I become kofta or if we get married. She is shocked by his words and leaves him and goes. The next day, Sultan goes to Barakat and tells him, I want you to teach me wrestling. Arfa is watching what is happening. Barakat asks him, what do you know about wrestling? He replies, it's easy. Grab the opponent and pin him to the ground. Everyone present laughs at him. Sultan then tells him, okay, what do you say? I challenge your 3 strongest men in the one thing I'm best at. He asks him, what is that thing? He replies, chasing. If they defeat me, you won't see me here again. But if I defeat them, you teach me. He replies, I agree. He calls Yasun, Yasin, and Rakesh and tells them, start. Sultan runs from them and they run after him, but they are unable to catch him and fall one after another until their strength collapses and they cannot move. Sultan wins. Barakat tells him, be here tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Sultan is happy and Arfa is astonished by what happened. The next day, Sultan arrives on time, but he is surprised to see an ambulance and Yuan coming out. He asks him, don't tell me Barakat died? He replies, are you crazy? For him to die, we'd have to blow him up first. This is a blood donation camp that Arfa organizes every year. He enters and she tells him, come, at least we'll take 3 or 4 liters from you. He grabs her hands because he is afraid of needles, so she thinks he is flirting. He tells her, it's not what you think at all. The nurse tells her that his blood type is O negative. Arfa tells him, your blood type is very rare and we couldn't find it. He tells her, I am a rare human being entirely. You will never see anyone like me in every way. You should seize the opportunity and marry me. She tells him, the dream of the medal is impossible for me to risk with marriage, but we can be friends. So he donates blood and they leave together. She asks him, why haven't you married yet? He replies, I hadn't seen the girl I could live with for the rest of my life. And what makes you wrestle? She replies, because my father wished to have a son, but I was born. But honestly, he didn't deprive me of anything and fulfilled all my dreams. And I decided to repay him and fulfill his dream. From that time, Sultan was always with her, and she became the one who taught him the basics of wrestling and went out with him everywhere. But one day, he took her on an outing with his friends. Govind tells her, we are all happy that Sultan is the first one in the group to have a girlfriend. She asks him, you told them on your girlfriend? He replies, and what's wrong with that? She leaves him and goes. He follows her and tells her, why all this? The whole village already knows there's something between us, and they all know you've become my girlfriend. She gets angry and slaps him, saying, I was just your friend, but you'll never understand. Do you think I would fall in love with you, a state champion with my ambitions and goals, while you are a clown everyone mocks? At least one who loves someone must first respect them, and the two complete each other, and you have neither goal nor ambition. She leaves him and goes. Sultan is shocked, and his friends are saddened for him. He leaves them and goes home, unable to speak to anyone. Since then, his life turned upside down, and he began to live alone. He tried to occupy himself with his father's work to forget what happened. His father felt that something strange had happened to him, and Govind told him everything that had happened with Arfa. At night, his father went to him and spoke to him, saying, understand this well. Every successful man has a woman behind him, and every failed man has a woman behind him too, but no one approaches the failures. You must do the impossible for the world to respect you. Sultan was convinced by his words. The next day, he went to Barakat, and Arfa was there. Sultan told Barakat, I want to join you and compete in the state championship. He replied, you must be crazy. You came to joke. Sultan told him, this is serious, not a joke. He replied, you've spent 8 days with us and you want to compete in the state championship? Sultan asked him, and what's the problem with that? He replied, a wrestler needs years to enter a championship like this. Please don't waste my time. Sultan asked him, okay, who from your club will play in it? He replied, Yasin, Rakesh, and Yawan. But why? Sultan asked him, if I can defeat them, will you let me play under the club's name? He replied, you seem crazy. But he put them against him to see what would happen. He went against the first, second, and third, and they all defeated him with utmost ease. Barakat told him, are you satisfied? That's enough for now. Sultan replied, today I fought to know my ability, and in 1 month I'll be be back because this championship of yours belongs to me." He leaves them and goes. Arfa was shocked because he had changed so quickly. From that time, Sultan decided to become a beast and trained day and night everywhere to gain the strength he needed. Govind took him to another club to learn everything about wrestling. Sultan knew no rest to achieve the goal he now lived for, to fulfill his promise to Barakat and to force everyone to respect him. After the month ended, he went to the club as a different person from whom they knew. He entered the challenge and attacked the fighters like a beast, crushing them, and told Barakat, "Don't forget what I told you." He replied, "Don't worry, I still remember. The championship is Sultan's championship." He leaves them and goes. Arfa couldn't believe what had happened. 2 months later, the championship date arrived. Arfa defeated the girls and thus won the same championship for the second time. Sultan reached the final match and played against last year's champion, but Sultan crushed him in all 3 rounds and became the new champion. But at the same time, Barakat's assistant told him, "Sultan has gone mad. He challenged someone twice his weight before winning the championship." Barakat went after him to the changing room and told him, "You are definitely crazy. If the Federation defeats you in this challenge, they will ban you from playing for life because you violated the rules of the game." Sultan told him, "I can't explain, and you won't understand me, but all I know is that if I defeat myself, no one can defeat me." At the same time, the assistant comes and tells Barakat, "Federation officials want you." He leaves him and goes. Arfa entered after she found out and told him, "Is all this to prove to me that you love me?" He told her, "You hurt me and broke me, but this is not for you, nor to defeat this wrestler. It's a battle between myself and myself to know its worth." He leaves her and goes. At the same time, the commentators say, "This challenge has never happened before. Sultan will either make history or become history." Sultan enters the ring and the coach tells his opponent, "You must crush him so he regrets challenging you." The challenge begins and Sultan attacks him, but the wrestler defeats him initially and the first round ends. The second round begins and the wrestler defeats him quickly. They take a break and Sultan focuses, remembering his opponent's fighting style to know his weaknesses. Govind encourages him with the crowd. The third round begins and Sultan attacks him with a strong heart, gives him a suplex, back throw, pins him, and wins by knockout. The excitement fills the entire place. Sultan goes to change his clothes. Arfa tells him, "Congratulations." He tells her, "Look around you. I became like this because of you." She asks him, "So you'll marry me?" He tells her, "Yes." After that, they returned and held the wedding immediately and got married. Since then, they both played together and won all championships one after another, national and international. But before the Olympic championship, Arfa suddenly became ill, and Sultan was surprised to find out she was pregnant. Arfa was shocked after she knew. Barakat told her, "You should have been careful because you won't be able to achieve our dream." She told him, "Don't you see how happy he is? It's okay. Sultan's happiness has become my real dream, but I promise you that Sultan will win the medal for the club." Since then, Arfa herself trained him, and time passed quickly, and the due date approached. Sultan played in the Olympic championship and won it with utmost ease. But after that, arrogance entered his heart, and he became a different person because of fame. One day, there was a press conference, and the minister honored him with a statue, but Sultan answered reporters' questions with utmost arrogance. At the end of the conference, a journalist told him, "You seem to have gone mad with arrogance." He slapped him with a pen and left him and went. Barakat was shocked by what happened and didn't know what to do. After that, Sultan returned home, and Arfa had found out what happened and was upset. At that time, her due date was only days away, but at the same time, Sultan was going to travel for the World Championship. Arfa told him, "Don't travel and stay by my side. We need you." He told her, "I cannot abandon this dream, and I know you will give birth to a strong boy like me." She told him, "Remember that I sacrificed my dream for our happiness. I'm afraid you'll move forward and leave us behind, and arrogance will blind you." He told her, "You've started talking like the others. I remember when I was weak, even you abandoned me and only returned to me when I succeeded." He leaves her and goes. At the time of the championship, Sultan traveled and played. At the same time he was playing, Arfa was giving birth. Sultan won and became world champion, and Arfa gave birth to a boy whom they named Aman, as Sultan wanted. Sultan returned to the hospital immediately and entered Arfa's room. She told him, "Congratulations, world champion. You gave birth to a boy, and we named him Aman, but he wasn't wasn't strong like you, but he was brave and fought for 18 hours. And we searched everywhere for his blood type, which is the same as yours, O negative. But we couldn't find a single drop of blood, and the boy died. You won, but you lost us forever, and I will never be able to live with you again, and I wish I never see you again." Sultan throws the medal where his son lies and leaves, unable to utter a word. He goes to his statue and breaks it. Since then, 8 years have passed since his separation from Arfa. At the same time, Akash, the son of the former head of the Sports Federation, organized a mixed martial arts competition, but it failed after billions were spent on it because it had no audience in India and all the fighters were foreigners. Akash asked for a 6-month opportunity from the other organizers to compensate for their losses, which were due to him. His father told him, "You lost because these games are not like us. Our people only know Indian wrestling." He told him Sultan's story and said, "If you can get him with you, he is the only one who can save you from your current situation." The next day, Sultan is going to his job, which he took after leaving wrestling, collecting donations from his colleagues as he does every month to establish a blood bank in his village and save people's lives. Akash arrives at his location, but after offering Sultan refuses, saying, "It's impossible for me to return to wrestling again." He leaves him and goes. Akash learns from Sultan's colleagues the whereabouts of his friend Govind and immediately goes to him for help in convincing Sultan. But after speaking with him, Govind tells him, "Sorry, I can't." He asks him, "And what is the reason for someone who was a world champion to suddenly retire?" He tells him, "Because of the most famous love story in our city." He tells him the story of Sultan and Arfa from beginning to end. He tells him the biggest problem is that Sultan became alone after his grandmother died and then his father died. Since then, Sultan's only dream has been to establish a blood bank for the village so that the same story as his son's does not repeat itself, even though he is sure that Arfa will not forgive him. But he does all this to be able to forgive himself. He tells him, "Be careful, he is a simple man. If you offer him a deal, he might refuse, but if you touch his heart, he might do the impossible for you." He thanks him, and Govind leaves him and goes. At night, Sultan goes to the shrine every day to see Arfa and try to make her forgive him, but Arfa, as always, passes by as if she doesn't see him. The next day, Sultan goes to their local representative for the 1000th time to help them establish a blood bank, but the representative gives him no results. As always, he leaves him and goes back to the village. At the same time, Akash is on his way and tells him, "I know your whole story, and anyone in your place would have done that, but the money you collect for the blood bank, if you spend the rest of your life collecting it, you won't even be able to build it. Perhaps the wrestling that took everything from you will give you everything back again." He leaves his number in his pocket and leaves him and goes. Sultan returns home and sees the money he collected for the blood bank. He is convinced and goes to the shrine, enters, and tells Arfa, "My sin is great, and I know you won't forgive me, though I am sure you still love me. Just as wrestling made me, it also broke me. But a true wrestler is one who, when he falls, stands up again, and for that, I will return to it again, having lost everything. But this time, I will play for your respect for me and my self-respect, and for our lost son. All I wish from you is that you pray for me, and if you never see me again, forgive me." He leaves her and goes. Arfa is touched by his words, but unable to speak. The next day, he goes with Govind to drop him off, stops on the way, enters Barakat's place, and takes some soil from there as a memento. He leaves the place and goes. He bids farewell to Govind at the bus station and arrives in Delhi and goes to Akash's place. But as soon as the organizers see him, they tell Akash, "You brought a 40-year-old man against 24-year-old fighters in a sport he has never played before." He tells them, "Okay, you're right, but he will play, and I have 3 months to train him." But they tell him, "And who will agree to be his sponsor? You know no one can play here without a sponsor." He leaves them and goes to Sultan and takes him to agree with his sponsor. But the person they were going to agree with tells him, "You see my father? He's the stingiest person in the world." Akash tells him, "Don't think like him. Think for the future. When your shop's logo is on Sultan's clothes, you'll become famous and earn millions." He is convinced by his words and tells him, "Okay, agreed." Akash takes Sultan to introduce him to what he will play. He tells him, "You're crazy. I only know wrestling, and this is judo, boxing, karate, everything mixed in a blender." He tells him, "Remember, earning $1 million is not easy." He tells him, "Yes, I want to earn, but I'm not Superman, and how will I learn in this short time?" He tells him, "You definitely know everything about wrestling. He replies, "Of course." He tells him, "But don't worry, you'll learn quickly then." He takes him to Old Delhi and tells him, "I'll take you to the oldest martial arts gym in all of India." Its owner, Fateh Singh, was a professional in London, but there he was accused of doping and deported back to India. Since then, he decided to become a coach for all kinds of dangerous martial arts. After that, they sit with him and Akash tells him Sultan's story. He tells him, "So, am I supposed to cry or what? I can't possibly train him," and tells him, "There's no one better than him." He tells him, "But I see a tired, failed man buried in sorrow." Sultan gets angry at his way of speaking. Akash tells him, "Trust me and train him." He tells him, "Okay, I'll try for your sake." He tells Sultan, "We'll meet here tomorrow at 10 in the morning." The next day, Sultan goes to him on time, but he remembers all his words while changing his clothes and feels bitter about himself. But he continues and goes out to the ring and challenges Fateh's fighter. But the fighter attacks him with all the techniques Sultan doesn't know, and Sultan is unable to face him and falls. Fateh tells Akash, "You're wasting your time." He is about to leave him and go. Sultan gets angry and attacks the fighter, gives him a suplex, back throw, and crushes him. He gets down and tells Fateh, "I abandoned wrestling, but the fight is still alive in my blood." He leaves him and goes. From that time, Fateh trained him with his fierce style until he transformed him into a beast stronger than before in every way. And again, he brings him the clothes with his logo that he will wear in the championship. But before the championship, Fateh tells him, "I trained you to fight opponents, but the real battle is between you and yourself. Therefore, I cannot stay with you because I am sure you will kill yourself in the ring so you don't lose." He leaves him and goes. The championship date arrives, and we know there are 4 of the most dangerous fighters. But this time, Indians are happy to have Sultan in it. At the same time, Barakat is watching on TV, but Arfa turns it off, so he turns it back on. Sultan's first match is against the Brazilian Maris, a capoeira fighter. They hold a press conference, but reporters ask Sultan about his wife, and he tells them, "We are still married, but each lives in a different place, and perhaps because of you, she will be convinced and we will get back together." At the same time, Arfa is listening to the conversation. Maris tells Sultan, "I will break every bone in your body and send you to your wife in a bag." Sultan tells him, "My answer will be in the ring." After that, Sultan returns to rest, remembers his memories with Arfa, and falls asleep. The next day, before the fight begins, Indians come from everywhere to cheer for Sultan. Maris enters the ring. At the same time, Sultan tries to call Arfa, but he stops himself because he is afraid she won't answer. He takes some soil to remember his origin, but he is nervous and afraid of what might happen. At the same time, Govind has arrived to cheer him on and be with him. He tells him, "We must go out now." Fateh is watching the match, afraid. Arfa is deluding herself that she doesn't care. Sultan enters the ring, and at the same time, Heine sees him, happy that their logo is on his clothes. Sultan enters the ring, and the match begins, but Maris fights him with a fast style, and Sultan is unable to touch him. He tries to trap and corner him while following his movements. He seizes the opportunity and attacks him quickly, pins him, and fiercely attacks him, but Maris quickly escapes with a fast move. Sultan quickly returns and tries to give him a suplex back throw, but Maris violently attacks him, knocks him down, and applies a hold to force him to submit. At that time, 5 seconds remain until the round ends. Sultan endures and escapes defeat at the last moment. At the same time, Arfa rejoices from her heart because he was not defeated. During the break, Sultan focuses and his confidence returns. The second round begins, and he attacks Maris with a strong heart, gives him a violent suplex, back throw, quickly stands up and gives him a knockout punch, super crush, and finishes him. Everyone present couldn't believe their eyes and were shocked by what happened. Sultan leaves the ring, confident that he won. Akash asks his father, "What is he doing? The fight isn't over yet." He replies, "That's Sultan's special style. After this move, the opponent cannot stand." Maris was indeed trying to stand, but couldn't. The referee declares Sultan the winner, but at the same time, Arfa doesn't express her joy and leaves the place and goes. Fateh is extremely happy. Tiny is sure that he knew how to choose and that the money he spent on Sultan was not wasted. Sultan returns to training and trains late. Akash goes to him and tells him, "Today, you taught me not to let life defeat me, and it's enough that you made me see respect respect in my father's eyes. Sultan tells him, "You have given me another reason to fight for." Akash thanks him and leaves him and goes. The next day, he plays against Zayn and attacks him powerfully, applies a hold, and forces him to submit in the first round. At the same time, Arfa rejoices at the people's happiness and begins to forgive him. The next night, Akash goes to Sultan and tells him, "You must come with me because it's my birthday today and we must stay up late." They go together to the casino. There, girls try to talk to Sultan. Sultan tells them, "It's impossible for me to talk to any woman other than my wife." He sings to Arfa, expressing everything in his heart towards her. At the same time, one of them records a video and posts it online. The video spreads everywhere, but Arfa doesn't see it. Since then, Sultan has crushed everyone in his path, and his fame has grown, surrounding her everywhere. Before the semi-final match, Sultan calls her to know if she has forgiven him or not. At the same time, Arfa is training and doesn't manage to answer the call. Sultan thinks she refused to talk to him because she still hasn't forgiven him. He enters the ring feeling guilty and faces Tyler, a former wrestler who is as strong as Sultan and has a similar style. Therefore, no matter how Sultan attacks him, it doesn't affect him. At the same time, Arfa is worried and cannot watch because she feels Sultan needs her by his side. At that time, Sultan loses confidence and Tyler seizes the opportunity and attacks him fiercely and violently, delivering a powerful blow to his ribs and dominating him. But the bell saves Sultan and the round ends. During the break, Sultan tells Govind the blow was strong and broke 2 ribs. He tells him, "That's it, you can't continue, you must withdraw." But Sultan tells him, "I cannot give up now." The second round begins, and Tyler attacks Sultan in the injured area. Sultan attacks him and tries to pin him, but Tyler quickly stands up and snatches him with a quick move, but the move affects his shoulder. At the same time, Sultan imagines that Arfa is with him and that she has indeed forgiven him. Tyler seizes the opportunity and attacks him while he is distracted, but Sultan regains his confidence and attacks him with his style, giving him a violent suplex, back throw, and a powerful super crush, knockout punch, crushing him and winning by knockout. But he had reached his limit and his body collapsed and fell. At the same time, Arfa was already at the shrine, praying for him. Govind calls her and tells her, "Sultan has been hospitalized and you must come to see him." The next day, people come from everywhere to show him their support and cheer him on. At the same time, the doctor tells Akash that Sultan's injury is serious and he should not play again, but Sultan tells him he is determined to play. The doctor asks Akash to reason with him so that nothing happens to him. At that time, Arfa has arrived, learned what happened, entered his room, and they talked and opened their hearts to each other, and she forgave him. But she tells him, "Everyone says that if you enter the ring, you might die, but I am sure that if you give up, you will live, but you will die inside. So you must win and return from there as the Sultan I love." She takes him to greet the audience and let them know he will continue. The final match of the championship arrives, and Sultan will face Marcus, known as the Bloody Fighter. Arfa fears for Sultan because she was the one who encouraged him to continue, but Sultan tells her, "Don't worry," but she prefers to stay away so she doesn't see what will happen. He tells her, "Okay, smile before I go." She smiles nervously, but he is reassured by her presence. He leaves her and goes out with Akash and Govind to the ring. The match begins, but Marcus violently attacks Sultan, and Sultan is not even able to defend himself due to the injury. During the break, he tells Govind, "If anything happens to me, take care of Arfa." The second round begins, and Marcus violently attacks him in the injured area. Arfa is praying for him with all her heart, but Sultan loses all his strength and is unable to defend himself or block Marcus's attacks. He falls, and everyone is shocked by what happened and loses hope. But at the same time, Sultan realizes that Arfa has forgiven him, and Sultan finally forgives himself for what happened and stands up like a beast. But he imagines he is fighting his arrogant self, not Marcus. He attacks with all his might to defeat it. After that, his confidence returns, and he crushes Marcus and wins. Everyone couldn't believe what happened, even Sultan himself. Arfa runs and shares his joy, and after that, the Sultan she loved returns. They return to the village, and he establishes the blood bank, naming it Aman, and dedicates the championship belt to Fateh. And that was the end.